What if we told you that the Great Sphinx of Giza is far from unique? What if there is a colossal twin of the Egyptian statue in Pakistan that brings to light a historical truth beyond your imagination? Are you ready to say goodbye to those dusty theories from history class and learn something sheerly unbelievable that will shake your worldview? Then buckle up and be sure to stay tuned to the end. Mysterious past. If you think outside the box of official historiography and instead delve into, shall we say, slightly more alternative circles, you'll quickly discover that the Sphinx is not what it seems. The doubts which are expressed in the ranks of the skeptics already begin with the age of the stone mixed being. A look into our history book shows that the 20 meters high and nearly 74 meters long statue probably originated between the years 2700 and 2600 before Christ. However, even the conservative sources cannot avoid mentioning that the exact date of origin of the Sphinx still resembles an unsolved mystery. Those who massively question the common age dating, however, do not refer to the actual building, but to the traces found in its immediate vicinity. Accordingly, as they encounter countless traces of erosion, apparently caused by regular heavy rains. The problem is, the last period in which the Nile Delta was hit by such extreme rainfall was no less than 9,000 years ago. Against this background, some people come to the conclusion that the Great Sphinx of Giza must be at least twice as old as we are told. However, this interpretation is accompanied by an inescapable complication. At that time, ancient Egypt did not exist in this form at all. In fact, the birth of the world-famous advanced civilization is dated to the time around the year 3000 before Christ. Who spins this starting position now, still a piece further, comes fast on the thought that it could be therefore not at all the pharaoh Nenrikh-Bihonir which created the monumental statue. Alternatively, the approach is represented that the Old Egypt is in truth significantly older than the historians want to make us believe. Secrets of the Sphinx. However, the list of mysterious speculations that have always surrounded the Sphinx does not end here. On the contrary, it has just begun. What is it about the mystical chambers and tunnels that are suspected inside and in the immediate vicinity of the structure? How is it that the Egyptian authorities categorically forbid all investigations dealing with these mysteries? Are the investigations really only forbidden in order to protect the ancient buildings from damage? Or do the bans have a much deeper background in the end? Perhaps you have heard of the Hall of Records. It is said to be a legendary library from ancient times that slumbers directly under the mighty paws of the Sphinx. To find out where myth and reality merge, American researchers conducted a large-scale drilling. But after the men advanced 7 meters underground, there was still no trace of a mystical hoard of knowledge that is shaking up the way we all see the world. And yet the seismic measurements suggested the urgent conclusion that there are indeed unknown chambers hidden deep beneath the Sphinx. Officially, however, these are supposed to be completely natural cavities. But instead of pursuing this exciting trail, the Egyptian Antiquities Authority put a stop to all further research, officially to protect the statue from damage. The Forgotten Twin. But even if the background and the true function of the Sphinx may seem mysterious, one thing is beyond question. The Great Sphinx of Giza is unique. Let us not misunderstand each other. Of course, we are not dealing with the only mixed creature of its kind. Thus, the corresponding statues in different versions even occurred very often in ancient Egypt. Even more, also other peoples of the antiquity, as for example, the Phoenicians, the Hittites, the Assyrians, and of course the Greeks knew comparable beings. And yet, in terms of overwhelming dimensions, no other Sphinx statue comes close to the famous reclining lion with the human head. Or does it? If one follows a not entirely undisputed interpretation, then a no less impressive twin of the Great Sphinx actually exists. However, this is not in Egypt, but in Pakistan. The Baluchistan Sphinx. If you let your gaze wander over the Pakistani province of Baluchistan, you will find one thing there: rock in rough quantities. And yet, the longer we look at the corresponding photographs, the stranger they appear. The rock, with its numerous, almost regular indentations, appears much stranger than the formations that catch our eye in other places on Earth. And what is it actually about this colossal something that towers over the scenery? If we only look at the pure silhouette of this picture, the fact cannot be dismissed. It actually reminds us of the outlines of the world-famous Great Sphinx. But how can this be? What is the background of this shape? Are we dealing with an unusual freak of nature? Or has the shape been deliberately altered? If you now start researching the theories about the so-called Baluchistan Sphinx, you will realize that two camps have developed in the meantime. Those who smell a deliberate cover-up in the structure, as well as an unimaginable historical truth, and those who dismiss such hypotheses as pseudo-scientific nonsense. Where natural rock formations, weathering, and erosion fail to provide satisfactory answers, the hour of alternative researchers like Graham Hancock and Bibhudev Mishra strikes. Controversial interpretations. While Hancock is a British writer who frequently ventures into the parascientific frontiers, Mishra is an Indian information technology consultant who describes himself as an independent researcher. Regardless of the fact that the two men's articles have not yet been published in any academic journals, they have won the hearts of many readers with their explanations of lost civilizations, ancient myths, and hidden symbols. So now, let's see what Hancock and Mishra have to say about the Pakistani Sphinx, and how the opposing side counters these arguments. First of all, there is no accusation that the site has not been subject to any professional investigation so far, and is therefore presented as a natural structure without any archaeological basis. This is despite the fact that, according to Mishra, the site clearly looks like a gigantic complex carved out of rock. This is countered by the argument that the site has not yet been archaeologically investigated because there is simply nothing to investigate here. The root of the natural formations would not lead at all to a lost, highly developed people, but to the high seismic activities in the Makran region. These processes, in combination with erosion and natural weathering, sometimes produce very bizarre blossoms. According to the so-called Princess of Hope, which is located very close to the supposed Sphinx, also looks like an artificially created statue at first glance. True to the motto, if the princess is real, then so is the face on Mars. The critics allude to Mishra and Hancock becoming victims of pareidolia. This, in turn, is a phenomenon that we are all familiar with. We see faces and familiar beings in things and patterns. However, our brain plays a trick on us in such cases. It has a tendency to complete and align apparently incomplete perceptual images with familiar patterns. Of guardians and gods. However, Mishra and Hancock are not swayed by such assertions. They continue to hold on to their interpretation and even want to have uncovered the true purpose of the Baluchistan Sphinx. Thus, in the immediate vicinity is another important statue of long ago, a Hindu temple which has all the typical characteristics, such as the entrance hall and the temple tower. Accordingly, the Sphinx would act as a protector of the sacred site, just like its famous twin in Egypt. Well, actually, the original purpose of the Great Sphinx of Giza could not be reconstructed until today, but that is a topic for another video. Away from the assessment that such a temple does not even exist there, the question arises as to what a sacred Indian site has been lost in Pakistan. According to our official knowledge, the Harappa culture, which once lived in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and parts of India, was more related to the Mesopotamians than to the Dravidians who lived in southern India and Sri Lanka. Against this background, the next thesis of the alternative researchers also seems anything but unassailable. On the facade of the Sphinx temple, directly above the entrance, there would be two carvings which are heavily eroded, but which turn out to be Skanda and Ganesha in the course of a detailed analysis. According to Hindu beliefs, these are a pair of divine brothers descended from Shiva and Parvati. In view of this interpretation, it is not particularly difficult to find out whom the temple was once dedicated. But why should the people in the Indus Valley have erected such large monumental buildings in honor of Skanda, Ganesha, or Shiva? Because officially, these gods were not worshipped by the inhabitants of this region at that time. Even if the different religions show some points of intersection and parallels, The mentioned gods were either unknown in the Vedic culture or were simply rejected. Thank you so much for watching our video to the end. Feel free to hit the like and subscribe buttons to learn more about the most controversial discoveries of all time very soon. Finally, there is one more question to be answered. Where does the line between myth and reality begin to fade? Feel free to help us shed some light on the historical darkness. Do you believe that the structure in Pakistan actually embodies an artificially created sphinx? If so, what would this mean for the entire historiography? Or are we dealing with the result of a dramatic misjudgment and an overactive imagination?